warm up to it
Right,
first
well,
of
let
all.
me
To what I said.
introduce yourself first.
Well, I'm the old reprobate Peter Cripps, there, boy. Everybody from Free Sunrise and Estate. 50-year reunion with Barry and Marilyn, Harvey, and myself. There we go. But let me tell you basically the background of what was what. And then Ray became an awful, pitiful alcoholic. To such an extent that taxi drivers in Brighton would pick him up from the gutter and take him home, no one knew where he lived. And finally one night he phoned me up and said that his mum had died. And then he got horrendously drunk and fell down the stairs, contusions all around his brain, coma for 2 years, and died.
Wow.
And when he died, I was asked to do the eulogy. And I wrote the eulogy in 30 seconds, as it were. And this is where you played a very important part, Harvey. Because in truth, at school, Harvey Bowden was the #1 man. Ray was maybe the #2 man. And the rest of us were the little also-rans. But Harvey was bigger and stronger and tougher and more intelligent and more cool and more calm. And I mean this genuinely. And so you genuinely were the #1 man. And so when I tried to explain to people in Brighton the truth of Raymond Blannin, little kid turned up at primary school, he went round and offered, as a salesman, a fight to everybody. I don't know if you remember, in primary school. Right, Barry Naylor, I'll fight you either playtime this afternoon or first thing in the morning. He booked fights with everybody. And he went round and pretty much, I think, he more or less beat everybody, but the one person that he couldn't beat was Harvey Bowden. And then as life moved on, and I carried on with this eulogy, expressing the fact that Ray was a damaged soul who loved his dad, wished he had his dad, and when he'd say to us when he first moved down here, I'm going to see my dad next week, I don't know if you remember any of this, Marilyn, and we'd be so pleased for him, but his dad was on the television, playing with the Humphrey Littleton band. That's when Ray was going to see his dad. And so Ray was a damaged soul, really. He had a chip on his shoulder and he fought his way out of life and he drank his way and so on. And I understood all that. So when I came to the end of the eulogy ended up with Ray, if there is such a thing as an afterlife, just remember there might be one spirit that you can't beat, because maybe today God is starting to look a little bit like Harvey Bowden. And it was true. And you could have heard a pin drop. You could have heard. And then the funeral was over and I walked outside and I burst into tears. Burst into tears quite privately round the corner, just remembering all of us folks when we were little, growing up, going to school, and you know, that's life. So that's a rather sentimental story. But Harvey, you were the #1 man, mate.
Mr. God.
Ah, super. Yeah, Ray couldn't beat you, and if there is a God, he wouldn't have been able to beat him either. But it might have licked everyone else. There you have it. Yeah.
Peter, thank you for that.
Oh, you earned it, Harvey.
Yeah, he was a good lad.
He was a good lad,
Yeah.
Ray.
No, I must admit, I didn't understand that at all.
Well, he lived at Palfrey's, just above Palfrey's thing, with his mother.
That's right.
Who was, I always assumed that he was a bastard, that he didn't have a father.
Yeah. In a sense, he did have a father. His father's called Pete Blannin, and he's still alive. He was a jazz player with Humphrey Littleton. Humphrey Littleton band. Then for a short while with Long John Baldry and the Hoochie Coochie Men.
Right.
And when Ray got married for a short period of time, and his wife came from Hertfordshire, and they went up there to visit her folks. Ray went into the post office, and standing in front of him was his father, and he recognised him, as I suppose he would do, and so he introduced himself. And his dad said, "I'll come round to dinner tomorrow night." But when Ray turned up at the door, knocked on the door, his dad answered the door and said, "Please don't tell anybody who you are, because they don't know you exist." And that kind of, you know, as a real heart bleeder. And they were the things that drove Ray and drove him to the alcoholism. And I understood that. I knew that. So, you know, a sad story, really.
It is.
He was a good guy, Ray. I spent a lot of time with him when we left, Luke.
Yeah. Well, I spent a lot of time with him as a kid.
Absolutely,
And
mate.
we were reminiscing because he went up to the Trinity holiday camp, living in a caravan for
Yep.
a while.
Yep.
And I always remember he was so exciting because he didn't have a dad.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, he was an interesting
Oh,
kid.
absolutely.
And we always
Yeah.
used to do everything together. Well, it was me and Barry.
Yeah.
And here's Barry. Well, you remember Raymond, don't you?
I do, and I remember his dog, Binky.
Binky.
Binky. We had some good fun, good laughs.
Yeah.
And the overriding memory of Ray is, like Peter was saying, he had to beat everybody. And I can remember I'd just come down from Manchester, a new school, new friends, and he wanted to fight me, and he had a go at me, and I kicked him in his shin hard and then ran. And the next day I was afraid to go to school because I thought he's going to get me. And I said to me, Mum and Dad, don't send me to school, I'm going to be got by the crowd. Anyway, I went to school, I was stood in the assembly in the primary school, and Ray comes up to me and goes, you all right, Barry? And we were best mates after that.
Yeah, well, it was the three of us.
Yeah.
You, me, and Raymond.
Yeah.
How long ago?
Yeah, that was a long time ago. Yeah.
I spent all through the Mods and Rockers days with Ray. Used to hitchhike down to Brighton at weekends, go and stay there with his mum. His mum was always at work, and so Ray used to take me out shoplifting and in the supermarkets because we didn't have any food. So it'd be a few cans of beans and bits and pieces, and then we'd be out there, you know, in the heady days of the Mods and Rockers. And he was an exciting guy, Ray. You know, exciting guy.
He was a rebel.
He was a rebel, yeah. But truthfully, the background of it was that the fact that his dad rejected him is what really sat at the back of everything. That's what
Because
his anger.
His mum lived with somebody from the ship, wasn't it? A guy who worked in the ship.
I
They
don't
shacked
know.
up in that house together.
All right, I
There was a
don't know.
name Mandeville.
That's right. She was
She was
Mrs.
Mandeville.
Mandeville at some point. Yeah. Now she grew up in Romford. As little kids, her best friend was Frankie Fraser. And so when Ray and his mum moved to Brighton, Frankie got them their flat opposite where he lived. Frankie Fraser was, we had the Crays, and South London was run by the Richardsons,
Yeah.
and Frankie Fraser was a big guy in the Richardsons. So my first introduction into people out of gangland, they're nice people. As long as you don't.
They looked after their own.
Yeah. Had an interest in morality. And that was my first introduction through Ray into that area of life. Terrific. You know, enjoyed what I was looking at. So, you know, I remember Ray beautifully, incredibly well. Still think of him a lot, as I think of Jerry a lot. Every time I go into Looe, I look up on the house. Hello, Jerry. Every single time, Marilyn, without fail, since the day she died. Yeah.
Thank you.